Welcome to Retirement GPS, navigated by Zane, your roadmap to a secure and confident retirement. Each week, we explore strategies, stories, and planning frameworks designed to help you navigate the complexities of life after work. From tax planning to investments, income strategies to risk management, our goal is to give you the clarity and confidence you need to make informed decisions. But retirement isn't just about the numbers. It's also about lifestyle, purpose, and peace of mind. We're here to guide you through both the financial details and the personal dimensions of this next chapter. Let's chart today's course.
Welcome back to the Retirement GPS podcast. I'm going to be saying the opening words this time. This is your co-host, Zane Belsack, and introducing your main host, Ryan Zaharchek.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. We're glad to have you. We got a great topic today. Thanks so much for the introduction, Zane. Thanks for taking over the intro. That's always a fun experience.
I wanted to switch it up a little bit.
Yeah, it's good. It's good experience. Good experience. And it shakes it up for the listener.
I was going to say, someone's surprised. What is this?
Yeah.
It's a new voice.
Who is this? Who is this person on my podcast? Like the same person's always been on your podcast, just starting it out. Yeah, welcome everybody. We've got a great topic today. A topic I've been looking forward to doing for quite some time. I feel like we need a little bit of lead into it. A lot of people come to our podcast to learn about the technical aspect of retirement planning. They want to learn about Medicare and Social Security and Roth conversions, and understandably. But what we're going to talk about today is retirement happiness, and specifically our pleasure, passion, and purpose principle. And this is probably, for me, one of the most important podcasts, because I really feel like if you're not happy, it really doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter how strategic in your planning that you are. Happiness is really what we're all looking for, right?
Exactly. It's what you spend your whole life looking for, really.
Yeah. And it was interesting when I started my career, Zane, I'm going to test you out. I'm going to use you as my guinea pig. I love using Zane as my guinea pig. And I love setting him up and not telling him what I'm going to do, because we get that authentic reaction, which is always fun. But I'm going to push you a little bit, and I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want to try to drive at what exactly are you after? What is it in your career that you want to do for a living, that you love to do?
I am one day going to be a successful financial advisor.
Yeah, you want to be a financial planner, right?
Yep.
That's what you're studying for your CFP for. Now, why do you want to do that?
Why I want to do that? I think helping people is really the main reason. Helping people, and honestly, knowing your way around money is always a really good lesson to learn. And when you know you're helping people that really need it, it's beneficial to you.
Yeah, no, for sure. So helping people that's kind of the reason I got into the business too. So I completely connect with that. I understand that. Why do you feel like helping people is important?
Why do I feel like helping people is important? Because especially with money, not a lot of people know exactly how money works, how money flows, and really entering a career in something so complicated and learning how to simplify it for almost any single person is so important.
Why do you want to do it? Like, ultimately, why do you feel it's so important and you want to do it?
Because it's money. Money is what makes the world go round, I would say.
Sure. But why do you want to do it with your life? Why do you want to spend your life doing it?
Because learning about money and learning how the world works is what makes me happy, I guess, is what I can sum it up as.
Sure. Yeah, and it took me about 5 whys to get you to it makes me happy. Right?
That's what you were looking for. All right.
Now, you might say, because I want to make others happy. Why do you want to make others happy? Because it makes me happy. I think anything that you want to do in your life, if you keep asking why enough times, when I even got started in my career and I had a mentor that did the same thing, and they're like, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to do that? And ultimately I got to, because it makes me happy. And isn't that like foundational to why we want to do everything? Ultimately, why do we want to have a great relationship with our family? Why? Because it makes us happy, right? And we might start with all kinds of excuses.
Because I want to be there for my family.
Yeah, I want to be there for my family because I love my kids. And yeah, but why do you want to do that? Like, why do you ultimately want to get there? Because it makes me happy. Or it makes them happy. Yeah, but why do you want to make them happy? Because it makes me happy to make them happy. It's not really a selfish thing. And a lot of people take a little bit of an affront to it and say, well, it's all selfish then. And the truth is, no, not necessarily. At our core, we are human beings, we are animals, and we have these sort of drives for driving towards pleasure and avoiding pain, right? That's fundamentally how we function. And we have found that certain things are pleasurable. Certain things make us happy. So we want to go after those things. And this is a topic that I've spent some time learning about. I graduated college, and just to tell you a little story about where this came about, I graduated college and I started to work on Wall Street, and I started to see all these people who are making like this incredible amount of money. And I actually started making very good money myself, or especially for a young guy with no responsibilities. And I started buying things, and I noticed that these people I worked with that were making incredible amounts of money, we buy whatever we wanted, and it wasn't a whole ton of happiness around it. And everything that I thought growing up was like, I want to be rich, I want to be successful because it'll make me happy, and I'll be happy when I can buy stuff. And I was finding it just wasn't the case. There was like not a lot of happiness. Like it would be great for a while. I'd buy a camera that was very expensive and I'd always wanted. And look at me, I got this great camera. It lasted probably anywhere from a few hours to a few weeks before I went back to pretty much my average state, right? So happiness was really transitory when it came to using wealth or sort of material things to create your happiness. And I noticed that with the people around me. A lot of them were divorced. A lot of them were alcoholics, were going out every night and drinking until midnight, then waking up in the morning and coming into trade, making tons and tons of money and just doing it all over again. And I was like, was that really happiness? Is that what happiness is about? So at that time, I spent a lot of time starting to research and study happiness. And I didn't know it at the time because I didn't really know what my future career was and what I was going to be doing. But I found it really interesting about some of the theories around happiness because it's really the one thing that we all drive towards. Doesn't every single one of us ultimately drive towards happiness? If you take a bullet for your kid, you're doing it to be happy, right? Now, you might say, that's not going to make me happy to take a bullet. It will, because there's a greater happiness than your personal health. That personal health of your child is far more
your
important.
child surviving.
Exactly. Yep. So it all comes down to happiness. We're all striving for the same thing, whether we know it or not. And the remarkable point of happiness, and what I learned in my kind of studies, is that we are, as humans, really bad at knowing what makes us happy. As much as we all want it, we all want the same thing, we're all like really terrible at it. I started to develop this framework for myself about what I wanted and what would make me happy. And then when I started doing financial planning in 2007, when I started Zenergy, the first few years, I was really focused on building the business. I really wasn't too focused on this happiness principle because I knew I was driving towards my happiness. But I had a kind of come to Jesus moment. I was working with a gentleman, I'm going to call him Tom. And I had set up Tom over a course of about 2 years, get ready for retirement. He was retired. Him and his wife, Carol, had completely retired. And they were miserable. Essentially, they had everything that they could want materially, but they were miserable. And I said, am I solving for the right problem here? Am I solving for the right challenge that most people face? Because most people say, I just want to retire. I'll figure it out. Don't worry about me. And then they're, again, remarkably bad at knowing what's going to make them happy. So that's when I developed the retirement enrichment program. It's a really important part of what we do here, and an important thing, a part of what I try to teach people. We talk a little bit about, we've already talked about on the podcast, that we want to retire from something. We want to retire to something. It's why that is so important. And I want to dive into a little bit of our theory. The challenge now is Tom never really found his happiness. He actually died not long after. Probably died about 6 years after, and I was working with him when he passed away. And I have to tell you, if I had this program when Tom retired, I'm not saying I could have saved his life because he died of real medical problems. But the gentleman, he was just depressed for a lot of years because he lost his purpose in his job, and he never found it anywhere else. And I think if nothing else, there's a chance that we could have helped him. We could have helped him find a purpose outside of work and happiness, ultimately, outside of work. For me, this is really important. This is something that everybody should know about. Everybody should be thinking about because, like I said, it's what we're all going after. No matter what Zane tells you about why he's going into financial planning, he's going into financial planning because he wants to be happy. All right? That's why I went into financial planning. That's why I like helping people. That's why I run Zenergy Cares. It's because ultimately it makes me happy. And there's different levels of happiness, and we're going to get into talking about that. So let's do it, buddy. What do you think?
I'm just curious, how many whys were you going to ask me? There's going to be like 20 minutes in.
As many as it took. Ultimately, you'd get there because no matter what you were going to say, ultimately you can't get around saying it makes me happy.
I like that. No, and that's a good exercise because it really makes people think deep and eventually get to the same goal that everyone is thinking about, which is just being happy.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times too, when you're using that exercise for your career, sometimes a lot of people say, I want to go into marketing. Why do you want to go into marketing? Because I like helping people. Okay. And why do you like helping people? And ultimately you're going to get to it makes me happy. But A lot of times they'll say, maybe I don't like marketing so much. Maybe I just like helping people. And you derive at, as long as I'm helping people, I don't really care exactly what vehicle I'm using to do it. So maybe I'll use a different vehicle. It's really kind of helpful to help you understand yourself and kind of what's important to you. But ultimately, we do have to realize it all comes back to making me happy. That's what we're looking to do. Let's talk about it. So the 3 Ps, the pleasure, passion, and purpose principle. These are the 3 components of happiness. They're all important without question. Let's talk about each one. Pleasure. Pleasure is the sugar high, the rock star lifestyle of happiness. Pleasure is not a bad thing. Pleasure is a good thing. And what do I mean by that? It's going out and buying that car that you've always wanted and you've been saving up for a long time, and then you go out and you purchase that car, and that'll make me happy. It's a lot like I talked about when I bought that camera. That trip that you've always wanted to take to Hawaii, there is a certain degree of pleasure we experience from that, but it tends to be very short-lived and very fleeting. It's the reason why lottery winners that are surveyed a year later tend to actually be at the same level of happiness or less happy than they were before they win the lottery. It's because ultimately we adjust after we receive these material things, right? Our mindset adjusts. I don't care if it's dating somebody that you've always wanted to date and then ultimately breaking up, right? I don't care if it's taking that trip of a lifetime that you wanted to take. I don't care if it's buying that thing. Typically, the material things is where pleasure comes into place. Now, I want to be clear. Pleasure is fantastic. Pleasure, it can be a source of happiness, but understand it should be a relatively small source, just like sugar should be in your diet. But sugar is from energy. When you eat sugar, when you eat a cookie or you eat a candy bar, you get this spike of sugar, right? It gives you a quick burst of energy, and then you feel more let down afterwards than before you ate the candy bar or the cookie because it really wasn't like that great for you. And that's the way you can really think about pleasure, is not necessarily a problem, but just understand it's not exactly going to make you long-term happy if you're continuing to pursue pleasure. A great example of this is a drug addict, right? Somebody who's looking for that next high, a heroin addict who just has to shoot up every time. And I think the heroin addict will tell you they feel pleasure for a very short period of time. When the heroin wears off, they feel worse. And that's where the pleasure comes in. Clearly, that's an example of unhealthy pleasure, but there's no reason you can't have healthy pleasure along the way. Buying those things that you might want from time to time, flying first class on occasion, it makes you feel good, it's nice. And pleasure is important, but keep it in its place. Understand where pleasure is and the fact that long-term it's not going to make you materially happy.
Yeah, but that's not the lifelong goal, it's just pleasure. It's really the other two as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the problem is most young people, and I don't care if you're a child or even in your 20s, they're seeking pleasure as their source of happiness. Most older people have already grown and adapted and realized that pleasure is not going to provide them with long-term happiness. It's very typical that a 22 or 23-year-old will go out and buy that cool car and get the mag wheels and get all the things, and they're buying it and they're feeling like, oh, hey, look at me. I'm experiencing all this level of pleasure, and long-term it's not really providing the level of happiness they thought it would. Next, passion. So passion is really the next level of happiness. Passion is great, and passion should absolutely be a part of your life. Passion, just like I said, all 3 should be a part of your life. The question is how much. Pleasure should be there, just not as much as you think. It's not really going to provide you with long-term happiness. Passion will provide you with a fair amount of happiness. It really will. The example I'm going to use for passion is my grandfather. When he retired, he took on a hobby of clocks. He was the clock master. He would go to yard sales, garage sales, and he would buy old beat-up clocks, grandfather clocks, and mantle clocks, and all types of different clocks. And he would work on them, fix them, and make them all beautiful again. And he had this basement full of ticking clocks, probably 100 clocks when he passed away. And they were beautiful. It was his passion to buy clocks, fix them up, and work on them. A lot of us have hobbies like that we're really passionate about, things that we feel passionate about. The problem is with passion is if it's very internally focused, what it creates is it creates this sense of flow where we're in this thing. Another example is, and I'm going to use this for especially young people often feel this, is when they're playing video games, right? They're very passionate about their video games and they feel this sense of flow. But I can tell you, if you spend your entire life playing video games, what level of happiness are you going to achieve? Are you going to look back and say, boy, I really achieved the highest levels of happiness? No, you experienced the highest levels of passion, right? And you were very involved in the things that you felt this sense of flow where time melts away. You can play video games for 5 hours and think you were playing for a half an hour because time just melted away. You were really caught up in what you were doing. Are there things that you feel passionate about, Zane, that you just lose track of time?
I was going to say I don't want to say it's almost every day at work, but I'll be at my cubicle and time flies and I pick my head up off of my stuff, and in 4 hours have already gone by.
That's right. That's right. And I'm the same way. I get very caught up in my work, especially if it's work I feel super passionate about, that I really get involved in and excited about. But if it's internally focused, it will provide you with a sense of happiness, but not really the highest level of happiness, and not really for the longest period of time. I like the video game example because it's the best example of an internally focused passion. You're very passionate about something that really doesn't benefit anybody else. It doesn't benefit the world. It really just purely benefits you and makes you feel good. As soon as that video game is turned off, you're back to normal, right? You don't
Like, what do I do now?
Now what do I do? The passion dwindles. Very similar to the pleasure principle. So pleasure and passion important. They're not something that you should disregard. I want people to have hobbies. One example, another one, I like to cook. So when I'm in the throes of cooking and I'm really involved, like time melts away, I'm really passionate about what I'm doing. I like to do everything right, meticulous. And the nice thing is I can actually serve it to my family. So there is a little bit more that is externally focused, but it really is about me when I'm cooking. It's my sort of escape. And those things are fantastic, but they tend to be internally focused and relatively short term. And that's where purpose comes into play. This is really the highest level of happiness. Purpose gives you a direction. It's externally focused, where you're focused on improving the lives of the world around you. It's the lives of people around you, but improving the world around you. And that can be big and it can be small. You don't have to have a purpose where it's going to be, I want to feed the hungry all over the world. It could be as simple as, I want to take care of my grandchild because they're struggling with their math homework. Purpose is where you're focused on something that is bigger than yourself. And that could be, a lot of people find purpose in their church, in their religion. A lot of people find purpose in the work that they're doing. And you can be passionate about the work you're doing, but also can be very purposeful work. So if I'm Steve Jobs, right, and I'm creating the iPhone, I may be very passionate about creating the iPhone, but I think we can all agree that was something that was greater than himself. Like, he actually changed the world by creating the iPhone and introducing that to the world.
You might be listening on an iPhone, actually.
Yeah.
Honestly, you probably are.
You probably are. If you're listening on an iPhone, the importance of it and how it actually did go out and change the world. So having that purpose, and it should be a higher purpose. Again, it should be a purpose greater than yourself. It's interesting because the theory of happiness for generations, even centuries, was focused on pain and pleasure, where human beings drove towards pleasure and avoided pain at all costs. And that was turned up on its head in the 40s when you may have heard of Viktor Frankl, who came out with the book Man's Search for Meaning. It's one of my favorite books, probably my favorite book of all time. I read it almost every year. I actually just finished reading it for 2025. I like to read around the holiday season. And it really puts in perspective what's important in the world, and it focuses on purpose. And the story of Viktor Frankl was he was a therapist in Vienna in the 1930s, 1940s, but he was Jewish. And during the reign of the Nazis took over Austria and ultimately imprisoned him, his wife, and his family. And he was in concentration camps. Don't quote me on this, but it was for something like 4 or 5 years in concentration camps, 4 different camps. And he avoided death. The chances of surviving a concentration camp at that time was 1 in 27. And Viktor Frankl was one of the out of the 27 that would survive. And he did. And he created a theory called logotherapy. And logotherapy is Latin, which stands for meaning, and meaning therapy. And he uses meaning, i.e. purpose, to help people understand what really will make them happy and what will really drive them forward and really will help them manage suffering. Because what he learned in the concentration camps were the people that had meaning for their suffering, why they suffered, were the ones that survived. The people that had no meaning, could not find meaning in their suffering, were the ones that died. And it's a very interesting read. If you've never read Man's Search for Meaning, I encourage you to do it. But it really helps you understand that if you have a purpose behind anything that you do, that you can survive and you can find happiness in just about anything, even suffering. If you're dying of cancer and you feel like there's no meaning behind it, it is much, much harder, and you certainly won't feel a lot of happiness through that process. But if you're dying of cancer and you've got children and you say, my purpose in life is to make sure my children see how to meaningfully and powerfully suffer through this cancer and do it in a way that they can be proud of, there's a purpose there. And he shows people, he spent his entire career after the concentration camp showing people how to find meaning and purpose in the things that they were doing so they can find happiness. And ultimately, that's what I believe to be true. If we can find a higher purpose in the things that we're doing and we can find a higher purpose to give back to the world, that's where we're going to find the highest level of happiness that is the most sustainable. That can come from lots of different sources. You need to find what is the right source for you. And we actually developed our retirement enrichment program around this concept of pleasure, passion, and purpose, and saying, hey, it's okay to find pleasure. It's okay that you're passionate about things that you're passionate about and doing those things as well. But make sure we find that purpose. Make sure we find that higher purpose and not getting caught up in this lack of purpose that we lose because our whole purpose was defined by our career. So that's what we ask you to do. So let's talk about a few things that you can do, a few steps that you can take so that you can make sure that you're putting this into practice when you do ultimately retire. The first thing is find some pleasurable things that you enjoy doing. If you want to buy that sports car because you deserve it and you're entitled to it and you've always wanted it, then go out and do it. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Just don't think that's going to make you happy for the next 5 years, right? Go buy that sports car. That's great. Passion. There may be things that you're really passionate about. A great example for retirees, especially men, is golf. Men love to go out and they love to golf in retirement. I would say probably 50% of the people we work with golf in retirement. That's fine.
I golf and I'm not even retired.
They're not even retired. That's right. And that's something that you absolutely can be passionate about, you can be happy about it, and can make you happy. My dad goes out and he golfs multiple times a week when the weather's nice, and he's well into retirement. He loves it. He's really happy. But again, that's not what ultimately going to provide him the highest level of happiness, but it should have a place in your life. It should have a place in your retirement. And then lastly, make sure that you're finding a purpose. What is the purpose of your life? For a lot of people, it's their family. And that's great. Finding purpose in your family is fantastic, but just remember, your family may not always need you, right? There may not always be a way that you can provide to your family because you have adult children and they really don't need your help on a full-time basis. Maybe there's a purpose out there somewhere else. Maybe you're really passionate about the environment. Go find an organization that you can be a part of that helps the environment. Maybe you're really passionate about your church or your religion. Go out and find a way to get involved there. Just get involved about the things that are very purposeful to you, and you'll really touch that high level of happiness. And it doesn't even have to be that often. You don't have to spend the majority of your time there. If you're passionate about feeding the hungry and you spend 3 hours a week at the food bank, you're doing a great job. And I have to be honest with you, you're going to be really happy with yourself in the time that you're spending and what you're doing.
And I feel like a broken record over these past couple episodes, but it's setting goals. That's what helps you with your pleasure, passion, and purpose. Setting goals and knowing exactly what you're going to do and really why you're doing it.
Sure. And setting goals, but when we talk about that in our goal setting episode, but knowing that if I'm setting all material goals, that's going to be a problem, right? So when I'm setting my goals, understanding that I can have some material goals in there and I can have some passion goals in there. I want to spend 5 hours a week golfing. That's really important to me. Great. But what are your purpose goals? Make sure we're not overlooking that. Finding that higher purpose and setting some goals around that will absolutely help you find those highest levels of happiness in retirement. To sum up the 3 Ps, I think it's really important to understand that they all should have a place in your life. Purpose is the area where you really need to have the highest level of focus of what am I going to do and how am I going to do it. Pleasure and passion tend to come naturally, so you don't really have to spend as much time there. But setting those goals around purpose is going to be important. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much. If you like what you heard today, make sure that you give us 5 stars. Make sure you spread the word and let others know. Subscribe so that you're getting our podcast right into your inbox every week. For now, make sure you keep planning, and we look forward to it next time. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Retirement GPS, navigated by Zenergy. To explore today's topic further, visit our blog mile markers at zenergyretirement.com/blog, where we offer detailed strategies, examples, and downloadable tools to support your retirement journey. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook at Zenergy Retirement Planning for weekly insights, checklists, and planning reminders. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share it with someone planning for their future. Until next time, keep navigating toward a confident retirement. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended as investment, legal, or tax advice. Listeners should consult their own financial, tax, and legal advisors before making any decisions. Zenergy Retirement Planning is a registered investment advisor located in Red Bank, New Jersey.